Okay, so we're inside a Kuler here, and you're going to design your palette for your repeat pattern. This is for Unit 3, Color Harmony and Repeat Pattern. So you got to create an Adobe user account. Just do that, and then you sign in. You have to be signed in to save your swatches. You're going to need to have an Adobe user account also to download the trial version of Photoshop. Okay, so I'm in the editor, and you can see on the left here I have all of these rules that I can choose, and then you're going to want to customize those. So just to start with, I have my base color here, or actually this is the base color here. You can choose another one to set as your base color, and here I'll show you how to do that in a second. But once you set a base color, then you can select any one of these. I selected compound, and then I clicked on custom, and what that did is allowed me to move my sliders around. And I like this this palette that I have here, but I'll show you how to use it. You're going to want to consider the hue, saturation, and value distribution. So how many fully saturated colors, how many totally desaturated colors, and how many in-betweens, how many dark values, light values, and middle values, and which colors. So here, let's do this. I'm going to set this one as the base color. Click that, and then I'm going to click compound. So that gives you kind of a starting point, but these aren't perfect. Don't go with exactly what they have here. And the reason I don't exactly like this is I have two cooler colors that are also my dark values. I have a light, and then I have two colors that are very much analogous that are my middle value colors, and you can see that's represented here. So the farther you get out on this circle, the more saturated the color, and the farther you get toward the inside, the more white or desaturated it gets. So I'm going to want to change that up. I want to add a little variety. So what I'm going to do is I'll click on this one next, and whenever I click on one of these swatches, you see which one of these lights up. I'm going to, oops, sorry, I have to be in custom. And click that. Now I can move these independently. And I'm going to go up, and I'm going to choose something that's a complement or close to a complement of my base color here. It's a little too mustardy for me. I'm going to bring it down. I want it to be a little bit desaturated, but I also want it to be a little bit dark. There we go. My next color, it's a little bit too muted in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is I want it to stay light in value, but I think what I'm going to do is up its saturation just a little bit. Here in the slider you can go from white to black. So if I go all the way left, I got black. All the way to the right, I have something that's as close to white as possible. And I like that because this color is a little bit desaturated as well, but since this has a higher value, it pops a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to go to this one here, and I think that there is too much yellow, and so I think what I want is probably something, maybe I want two darks. There we go. So my two dark values are here. I've just chosen two darks. I'm going to do two mids and one highlight. So I have those two darks. I got my highlight here, and I have my mid. And let's pick another color for my other mid. I don't want too many colors. So if I went like green over here, that would be too much. I have too much of a rainbow going on. I think probably, yeah, there we go. That's a good middle value. It's analogous, but you see how these are different than before. One is dark, one is light, one's more saturated than the other. So I'm trying to add a little bit of variety. You really have to experiment with this, but figure out first which distribution I'm going to go with. So once again, I went with two darks, two mids, and one highlight. Once you like it, and you'll have to title it, so I'll do this one, call this one Tester, and you have to be signed in, and then you can click Save. And it brings you back out here to, this is kind of like the entry page. By the way, to get into that editor, you click right there. Once you have a palette that you like, let's see, I'm going to download this one here, Unit 3. You can go over to this button and you click it, it saves it as an Adobe swatch exchange file. You give it a title and you tell it where to go. So we're over here in Photoshop and I have a repeat pattern. This is what you're going to color. This is your homework. Aside from creating the color palette, you're going to need to color your pattern in here. What you're going to want to have is your swatch file open, or your swatch palette, and that's found in the window. And the first thing you'll do is you'll probably want to just erase all of these swatches to begin with. You can always get them back later. So it says, hey, do you want to save? No, I don't. And now I want to replace those with that swatch exchange file. So now I just have that color palette, and that's what I'm going to use to color my document here. So if you're unfamiliar in Photoshop, there's a couple ways to color things, but one, once you've taken your pattern and say you've scanned it in, you have to take each layer and convert it to a smart object, and that's using the little flyout menu there. Oops, there we go. Same here. And now you can use the magic wand, or you can use the quick selection tool, whichever one you want. See, the quick selection here is a little bit more handy, sorry, if you need to kind of navigate some sort of hard to color in areas. In this case here, notice how it's not really grabbing to that circle. That's because I'm not on the circle. I have to click on the circle here, Control D or Command D on a Mac to deselect, and now it kind of knows what I'm trying to do. Probably something like this would be just a little easier to use the magic wand. Click on it, there you go. Now you can color either with a paintbrush or the paint bucket. I'm going to use the paintbrush tool. I'm going to sample out that color. No, it's got to be rasterized, so just do that, say sure. And I have a brush, a really small brush, so I'm going to use my right bracket to make that brush bigger. And there you go, you can just color it that way. That's one way to do it, or you could use the paint bucket. That's probably a little bit faster. So I'm going to use the, whoops, I'm going to be selected on this layer. That guy, paint bucket, has to be rasterized, sure. Now, and then you can go in and color each element that way. Deselect. So you're going to color your image, and then lastly you go to color in the background. So what you'll need to do is go up to Layer, New, Fill Layer, and you can choose a pattern or a gradient or solid, whatever. Just I would go with a solid for right now. And then once again I'm going to pick my light color, hit OK, and notice this layer is up above my pattern. Just drop it down below. And there you go. So I did everything in black and white. I probably should change the colors of these. Just use that magic wand and the paint bucket tool to do it. If you're not familiar, don't remember how to create this repeat pattern, I'll go over that real fast here. When you have your geometric pattern placed on the canvas, doesn't matter what the size of the canvas is, it will just create a different spacing one way or the other. You just need to have pulled out a guide that tells you where your center horizontally is. To do that, you just click in the rulers. Someone wants to cooperate with me. There you go, and I'll just place it right where that one was. So it tells you right where the center is, and then you take your element and you place it there in the middle. Then you want to duplicate that layer. So what I'll do is I'll take this layer and I can right click and duplicate layer, hit OK, or you can also drag it down to this little icon here, whichever. And then this duplicated layer, you're going to have to know what your pixel dimensions are. So I go up to image size. If I don't remember My document, or my canvas, sorry, is 1200 pixels wide by 2200 high. Hit OK. Go over to filter. You just got to remember what that is. You go to this filter here, click OK, and I've already set in those values. You want to divide those in half. So 600 pixels wide by 1100 tall will give you the correct offset. And now I have a repeat pattern. These two layers can be combined together and then saved as a pattern. So what I'll do is, since I have both of these turned on and all my other layers turned off, go up here, click Merge Visible. So now that is one layer. Then I go up to Edit, Define Pattern, call it Class, hit OK. Now you can open up a new document, or I'll just use the same document here, and you can click this little button down here and you select Pattern, and then I can change the scale. I want to change the scale down so I can see the repeat and see if it works. Click OK. So say I've chosen this scale. This is about 40-some%, and I want to go in and change some of the elements. Oops. I have to once again convert to a smart object. And now I can go in, and it's going to ask me to rasterize the image again. I'll say sure. Now I can go in and make further changes to the document. So you can create a more interesting distribution of your color palette. So lastly, if you want to erase this palette, come back in and you can reset your swatches and hit append or not, and then it brings you back all the swatches that you have by default in Photoshop.